Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. My name is Francis Tanglao Aguas. I am the founder and artistic director of Aguas Arts, Inc., based here in Williamsburg, Virginia. But our talent pool is from all over the United States and sometimes even outside of the United States. Our company does diverse and multicultural programming virtually. We have been created to create opportunities despite the lockdown for our theater artists, performers, and sometimes backstage crew. We are actually a production team of 3 with the actors today. It is our wonderful honor to present to you Coming Out Asian American by Jonathan Su. So without further ado, here it is. But before we go, when we get to there will be a screen sharing portion. You will get to see a clip from the live performance of the show that was done 5 years ago. There is kind of a loud sort of swimmers on your mark, get set, go. So just be aware of that. Thank you very much. Enjoy the show. Here is Coming Out Asian American with Jonathan Su.
All right. Hello. Is everyone here? Hey, what's up, hey, you're on mute. You're both on mute.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
All
Thank you.
right. All right.
Jonathan, right?
Yeah, we're all Jonathans here. We're all Jonathans today.
All Jonathan Su today.
Okay, so let's get this started. All right. So
Coming out
American. Asian American. All right. That A for effort. Good job, guys. Here we go. Hello, everyone. So I remember watching this TV series called Zhao Zhangshi when I was little. The show was recorded on VCR cassettes. The main character was called Zhao Zhangshi, which translates into little hopping vampire. Now, these vampires differed a bit from the Slavic blood-sucking spirits we know so well. They were reanimated corpses stuck in rigor mortis, hence the hopping with outstretched arms. Instead of feeding off the blood of living creatures, the little hopping vampire feeds off qi, or life energy, for survival. A lust for life.
This Zhao Zhangshi was a photogenic little guy, his face frozen in a permanent mischievous grin. He wore his hair in a braided queue, a symbol of Han submission under Qing or Manchu rule. A Taoist priest can put the vampire to rest by pasting a rectangular enchanted parchment on his forehead, thereby controlling the Zhangshi and leading him back home to lay to rest. This magical parchment contains the name and date of birth of the vampire and causes the vampire to lose its own consciousness. Induced hypnosis.
And because Zhangshi are essentially rotting, decomposing corpses, they are terrified of seeing their own reflection, as I have been. Because of who I am, what I look like, I am uncomfortable with my own likeness. I feel like a Zhangshi. I grew up with a note pasted to my forehead. Asian. Born in the 1990s, no consciousness, in a vegetative state.
The few representations I did see were twisted, grotesque miscreations which crafted my self-concept and identity.
Cultural tropes devoid of humanity. Am I a monster?
A sideshow freak?
It is for all the fellow monsters out there looking for their likeness.
A chink, with a chink in the armor. When I was little, I dealt with my feelings by bottling them up. All this abuse and racial slurs that came my way, I just collected and placed them inside this black box locked deep inside me. I threw away the key, never wanting to reopen this box. Don't get me wrong, I had to do something in the moment, so I fought back. Fight or flight. I chose fight. But I did little to change the situation. I reacted to the cause unconstructedly. I was this simple reaction, this knee-jerk reaction, just like when the doctor taps your patellar ligament with a rubber mallet. Nerve impulses are instantaneously relayed to your quadriceps, which jerks your leg up before your brain even grows aware of the tap. Tap, tap, tap. I retaliated each time I was verbally or physically assaulted. Some got off on the effect of these words on me. They saw how angry and uncontrollable I got. They knew my hot button and they pressed it knowingly. I hated that I was so easily aggravated, so vulnerable and sensitive over jokes, words, and phrases, but I couldn't help it. I wanted to be stronger than this, to be above it, to be impervious to pain. Teflon John! 'Cause you know I'm tough, right? 'Cause you know I'm tough, right? 'Cause you know I'm tough. Right. Okay, yeah, you really think that word will bother me? Words can't hurt me. But they did. I didn't want to become this enraged, hideous, hulking beast. But I did. In the heat of the moment, I didn't consider the greater consequences of my actions. I just did.
Phone home. I remember being called into the school office after a brawl on the basketball court. A kid named Mark had called me Chink. Chink. While sitting in a counselor's room, Mark and I were asked to write and illustrate on a piece of paper what happened during our altercation. Obviously, I drew the most awful, deformed stick figure of him possible.
Mark was seated beside me at the conference table. I took every opportunity to give him the side eye. He told on me. He called me the C word. I am tired of keeping my head down. I should have just talked to him about my feelings and how I was scarred by what he said.
Aside from exuding unveiled ill will, I was nervy and worried. I wasn't so troubled about the administrative punishment of suspension or staying in for recess the next few days, but rather what would happen when my parents found out. The gnawing anxiety caused my stomach to hurt.
Coming from what I would describe as a first-generation immigrant household, I was well aware of what would happen to me. The wooden paddle was bearable, but the belt, that childhood marker still sent shivers down my spine just thinking about it.
Hey, do not pick up things on the ground that are not yours.
But, Mom, how come it's okay if I pick up a rock from outside, but if I find a limbless action figure on the ground, it's the end of the world?
With that impending phone call on my mind, I just didn't want to go home that day.
Miss Hasu, is this the Hashu residence?
Yes, hello. Who is this?
This is Melissa Metcalf from the Oak Hill Elementary Guidance Center calling on behalf of your son, Jonathan Hasu.
And for the record, it's Sue. The H is silent, pronounced like Sue. Definitely not Hatsu. Are you sneezing or attempting at butchering my last name on purpose? And even the Sue is this dumbed down American pronunciation of my family name. Shu is the correct way of saying my last name in Mandarin. Does the mispronunciation bother me? Well, it did for a while. But I eventually reappropriated it for my rap pseudonym, Johnny Tsunami.
Yes, what did he do this time?
He was involved in an altercation with another student today on the basketball court during recess.
Oh, I'm so sorry. So sorry. What happened?
Well, based on both of their accounts, it seems like they were playing a game of basketball when they started disputing the score. One thing led to another, and in the heat of the argument, it seems the student called Jonathan a racial slur, and
Sorry, I don't understand.
the student called your son a disparaging remark about his race.
He called my son what? He called him Chinese?
Yes. He called your son a chink. A chink.
Oh. Yes,
Yeah, and your son ended up slamming the student into the fence. I just wanted to let you know to make sure your son refrains from resorting to violence like this, blah, 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 blah. You get it.
Okay, thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
You know, at times I might have crossed the line from being bullied and becoming the bully. Being feared is better than being scared and pushed around, right? Honestly, even though I didn't take shit from anyone, I was still a confused, self-conscious, impressionable kid deep inside. I mean, no one taught or told me what to do. I just acted and repressed everything inside me. And that secret, hidden pain ate me away.
Later that day, I came home downcast and depressed. I knew I did something wrong, and I was just counting the minutes until the final judgment. My mom had a talk with me, but she didn't discipline me like I fearfully imagined. She told me she was proud of me. I was like, what? I did something bad, right? She said,
You are a real man now.
and that was it.
With my parents, silences mean so much more than words. Unspoken love, unspoken pride. It was one of those moments. And her tacit approval gave me hope. And with that support, I could rise up again.
But I wanted to hear more on what she had to say about race in America. I honestly didn't even understand what the word chink fully meant, but I knew that it was an offensive term by the way Marx had said it. A word that singles me out as different in a negative way, affecting me, my sisters, my parents, grandparents, my cousins, aunts, uncles, my whole lineage. Somehow being Chinese, being Asian, and being me is wrong and repugnant.
That word taught me hate. Hate for those ignorant bullies exploiting it to cut at me, to take my identity and crush it, to take a people and culture, rich with history, all negated by a single brutal term. I cultivated hate towards myself.
I was this chink.
I was this chink.
I was this chink.
I was this chink, and I couldn't do anything about it.
What could I do to change this term?
Can I reappropriate it?
This one word produced underground vibrations that would continue to upset and distress my foundations for the rest of my life.
That word created a chasm in my mind.
Who am I? Am I truly Jonathan Su?
Or am I this simple chink?
Or am I just this simple chink?
Or am I just this simple chink?
Or am I just this simple chink, this Asian kid in America?
Carbon copies, carbon names. The same goes for being called Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan, Jet Li, Confucius. Just because they happen to be Chinese and I happen to be of Chinese descent does not make us one and the same. And it's all fun and games until someone actually dies from a hate crime. Vincent Chin was a Chinese American murdered, brutally beaten to death by two Caucasian men with a baseball bat a day before his wedding. They thought he was Japanese American. They were upset about the rise of the Japanese automobile industry in America. Since when did cars equate to people? Call me that instead, the names which have been forgotten. I looked in books, tuned into radio stations, and scanned TV screens in hopes of finding answers. Maybe Batman was Asian. I really liked the Batman animated series. He had cool gadgets and engaged in hand-to-hand combat with some martial arts flair thrown in here and there. He drives fast cars. I mean, have you seen the Batmobile? It's like the perfect Fast and Furious car. It spits out flames from the exhaust and has an insane matte black body kit. I wonder if it's a manual transmission. Batman looked like a ninja combating evil villains in Gotham City, especially since he wore a black cowl over his face. And I could totally envision an Asian American Batman. If that happens, then I would have found my superhero for life. So why'd you have to take the cowl off, Bruce? Why? Look, even the name Bruce, you know Bruce Lee. I dressed up as Batman for Halloween for so many years as a kid, waiting for my Asian American superhero to someday emerge.
Names, names, names. What's it like having two names? An Americanized name because my parents wanted my sisters and I to have an easier time than they did have fitting into the US. They called me Jonathan Irvin Sue, Stephanie Ivy Sue, Evangeline Iris Sue. All our middle names started with the letter I. Those I's remind us of who we are in a world which keeps asking us to redefine and seize I. My mom chose her name, Carolina. My father, Baron. Later on, my parents both legally changed their names back to their Chinese names. They never explained why. I always thought they outgrew their names. My Chinese name is Xu Han Sheng. It means Meliora, Latin for ever better. So what does Jonathan mean to me? Does having two names mean I'm a superhero? I have my normal American white bread name to fit in and not stand out, and then I have this Chinese alias.
Misrepresentation through time. In school, I remember reading in the history books about these internment camps for the Japanese during World War II. I always thought to myself, hey, wouldn't that be nice? I mean, the civics book really didn't go into much detail. You know, I had never been around a significant Asian community growing up on the East Coast. All you gotta do is just give up your property, dignity, and citizenship. Anyways, I finally found a place where I belonged, where being Asian isn't a bad thing, where I can find a sense of community, of safety and security, and finally be able to craft a strong, proud identity. That was what I was searching for. I finally saw for myself the wonders of these Asian enclaves segregated within a city when I visited Washington, D.C.'s Chinatown. Run down, dirty, smelly, with terrible cuisine to boot. And this was for their own good, so they can peddle the fake name brand consumer products which people ceaselessly mock, yet they purchase when touring the great ethnic towns. Slum fashion. Foods they critique as having too much MSG, when in reality, that bag of Doritos, that Chick-fil-A burger is dusted and dipped with MSG, yet no one says a word about that. Everything made in China is of terrible quality, yet they can't seem to wrap their head around the fact that their capitalist desire spurring outsourced manufacturing was designed, developed, and built in the West. So what about a Chinaman made in America? Wouldn't that phenomenon suggest something of amazing quality and refinement? But it is nonetheless too hard to chew, difficult to stomach, so they reject it. Mapo tofu, too spicy. Braised pork belly, too chewy. Scallion pancakes, too smelly. Instead, mix ketchup, rice vinegar, brown sugar, cornstarch, and soy sauce together to make your sweet and sour chicken.
No role models. I grew up with little to no Asian American or Asian role models. And yes, I grew up immersed in American mainstream pop culture, where I was repeatedly shown images of successful and famous Caucasians. And in sports, in the music industry, I began to see more and more distinguished African Americans. But as for finding faces like mine, well, even to this day, I mean, I still look around for that strong Asian American example that I can relate to and who can properly and fully represent me.
Bruce Lee was a close iteration. He broke down many barriers, but he was also typecast. He was put into a box by Hollywood. And just as he began to break out of his stereotypical role as a kung fu master, he died from an allergic reaction to pain medication, cerebral edema. Lee debuted on these shores as Kato in The Green Hornet, where he played this secondary submissive sidekick that does all the dirty work for his white partner, fighting on command for, Van Williams. So why am I always short round when I get to be Indiana Jones, Dr. Jones?
Da 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 da.
Da, da, da,
Da-da-da-da-da-da.
But I'm always playing second fiddle.
I deeply wished for an Asian American superhero my whole freaking life. But hey, if there's a void, why not fill it? So I've been brainstorming, the past few weeks, coming up with an Asian American superhero or superhero team which can patrol the streets of injustice and fight the evil world and words and bigoted individuals out there to help create a better world for us all. I visualize a superhero who can show the humanity and depth of Asian Americans. A superhero for the monsters, to protect us from the normal people, to bring the balance back.
This superhero isn't defined by amazing brain power, but rather through being amazingly well-rounded. A polymath guardian who can defeat the greatest of enemies without even lifting a finger. My Asian American superhero can change sizes like Hanuman, the Monkey King, who can carry the marginalized Asian people up on Himalayan-sized shoulders. One who can speak to you telepathically, communicating through thoughts and ideas unhampered by hegemonic languages.
A true Captain Planet, rescuing our decayed globe from the colonizers who have pilfered and brutally waged war until nothing remains but earth and dust, matted by the blood of the people and tears of the sky.
A hero, or the Asian Americans bullied in the schoolyard, instill within them a greater historical cultural knowledge, teach self-love, self-confidence, and let them know things will be okay. Because they will be there every step of the way as we find and mold our identities out of clay from our ancestral land and our birthland, creating a homeland.
But most importantly, he needs to be bad ass. Not just bad as in evil Dr. Fu Manchu, or an ass like ever subservient Mr. Charlie Chan. Rather, badass.
And if you mess with that Asian American kid in the bathroom again, well, our gargantuan gusts of cyclonic wind will blow you away. So, +1 to being Asian American.
Side effects. On being an individual and finding your place in the world. People with a disorder may hear voices that others don't hear. I hear the voices of shame, hate, disappointment. Voices telling me to stop what I'm doing. Voices telling me I don't belong. But amidst the sea of negativity, there are a few bright, supportive, and comforting sounds. And those are the ones that we try so desperately to hold on to, because we know that those voices aren't going to be there on our darkest days.
We cope with the symptoms we experience as a result of living in a racialized world. We swallow the placebo pill of colorblindness, political correctness, and post-racial utopia. But in reality, we still see double vision. We see people being beaten down, humiliated, and broken words puked upon us so often that we as observers even contract this disease of race. We ourselves begin to structure our thoughts, our worldview around that one thing.
We try to get over it, like washing our hands vigorously with soap, hydrochloride, mercury, and hydroquinone in an attempt to erase our skin color, erase the stigma of race, attempt to make life easier by aligning with the mainstream. The perfect solution, disillusion. Sometimes you feel that other people around you can see your motives and read your mind. You feel that by trying to take agency, you also lose agency.
They want you to lose sight and lose hope of yourself, to become a nobody, a monster, Jiangxi. indiscriminately using electroshock therapy, lobotomies to ensure everyone continues to cycle and plays into the game. They win when you let yourself die. Perhaps it's not my problem that I have this disorder. Perhaps that is not fair looking at my condition through such a negative, problematizing lens. Perhaps I am schizophrenic on race, possessing a heightened consciousness of memories and experiences pertaining to this one thing. So insignificant to some, so crucially important to others. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm dead.
Asian American psycho. Look into my psyche. See the true internal complexities of the wave of emotions and thoughts that sprint through my head. See the frustrated, colonialized. Gain this perspective into the colonized mind. Look into the product of Western imperialism. This coolie, this goop, this oriental, this chink. Dink, let's be more creative. Look at me. I'm a display. I'm a showcase and exhibit. Admire me and stare at me, exoticize me. A fine but inferior specimen, an insidiously invasive yellow little species. Illustrate my caricature, dehumanize me. Look at the effeminate qualities and intrinsic weaknesses of me. Point out how I am flawed to begin with.
Uncle, tell me why I don't belong. Break me down, feed me lies, point out racial advancements and token individuals of color within the system. Tom, uncle, tell me another statistic. Tell me how good things are because it's improved from before. Tell it to my face that these injustices are not that bad and thus I should be satisfied and content. Sam, tell me what language I should speak. Ching Chong, tell me I can't speak that language. English, America, tell me my place. Explain my culture to me. Tell me what I can and can't do. Dream. Depict the image I am supposed to conform to. Model. Tell me how you see me. Minority. Kick me out of the country you imperialized. Sorry, Charlie.
Treat me and call me your little Asian brother, Brother Jonathan. Dangle the model minority carrot in front of me. Incentivize me to assimilate and conform into the image you want me to be. Data. Influence me to play the shallow foil of a character. Let me be that hard-working sidekick who never gets the credit or spotlight. Stuck or starstruck. Ignore me. Erase me from history. Destroy my credibility. Devalue me. Cut out any representation of me, take away my role models, strip away my manhood, castrate and humiliate me, force me to think suicidal thoughts, propagandize my mind, my mentality, make me into you but never accept me. Treat me as half a man, half an individual, half a spirit, half a human being. Give me half your nationality.
You might as well take everything away because half was never enough, half was never constitutional, half was never democratic, half was never just, half was never human. So fuck the complacency, fuck the silence, fuck the repression, the systemic oppression, fuck the status quo, fuck giving me half, fuck the word fuck. Fuck your construct, fuck the hegemony, fuck the apathy, fuck the institutional ceiling, fuck my enslaved mind. Because I've been fucked by this mentality, this discourse my entire life. This is my voice. This is me.
This is me.
This is me.
This is me.
This is me. Coming out Asian American. Oh, that felt good. Oh, maybe I am an angry Asian man.
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 But maybe I am more than just that.
Maybe I don't like to be categorized.
Is coming out actually breaking out of the box or just going into another?
This is me.
This is me.
This is me.
This is me.
This is me coming in, coming out, Asian American. Instead of that dichotomy, there should just be infinite stages of is and or states of being.
This is me.
This is me.
This is me.
This is me.
Your mileage may vary. You know, I find comfort in driving. I'm in my personal bubble, an insulated vessel with bank vault doors, an impregnable fortress, no inputs or outputs without my say. I'm in control. With the doors locked, clutch in, the key in ignition, the voltage from the starter motor abruptly awakens the engine, which spins at faster and faster speeds. I turn the key 90 degrees, the galvanized steel pistons start slamming into the cylinder wall, drawing in air and fuel. And I let go.
The perfect distribution of air and fuel in the cylinder is compressed and the spark plugs fire. With that, combustion begins and the engine roars to life. I drive off. I drive away from people until they blur and recede into specks of nothingness. I take the scenic route with the rolling asphalt hills. I leave that black box of pain, depression, and angst behind me. With this burden lifted off my chest, I can finally enjoy the sweet silence. With the past behind me, I venture forward. With each mile, I am further removed. My rubber tires swallow up the road as I push my amnestic inclinations onto the gas pedal. I'm in the getaway car with one word on my mind: run.
Then I lose control. I collide with a blacked out two-door coupe. Red lights flash in front of me. Metal crunches, screeches as it is forced to wrap and crumple at the point of impact. I spin sideways in this aluminum crate on wheels, my eyes trying to find a focal point. My mind, body cry out for order and feedback as I tightly grip the steering wheel. I lose contact. I drift.
Drifting is controlled chaos, being in and out of control at the same time while speeding into a corner or turn. You adjust according to the inputs your vehicle gives you as you slide sideways. There's something beautiful and calming about the experience. Time slows down as you focus on remaining in a state of oversteer. Following the crash, for a few fleeting moments, I did feel alive, alert, and conscious. But I was out of control.
Swimming pools, part 2.
Stretches the hands, reaching up towards the ceiling, first to the right and then on the left. He shakes off the nerves, anxiety, and loosens the sinews of his body, staring at the world and just focusing on one thing. Time becomes relative and slows down to the mere seconds. They're no longer periphery, but just a central, narrow rectangle stretching in front of him. He takes a step onto the platform, takes 3 deep breaths, and waits for what seems to be an eternity. He undulates his body vigorously through the water to the point where all the adrenaline kicks in and his body tells him he needs oxygen. He does not want an urge yet. His kicks lose power and his lungs scream at him just to open up and take in the gulp of fresh air. It is so attainable, yet it is not. With no more stored air to be expended, his brain is constantly attacked by the one thought: breathe, live. And he finally acquiesces and pulls and flutter kicks his way up towards the shining light beyond the glassy surface of the water. He pulls with all his might, every ounce of his body working in unison, and he bursts through the surface.
Every time your head goes above the water, you hear the muted ah. There are teammates, friends, and family cheering for you, as well as those rooting against you. You quickly dip back, and it's all drowned away. It's just you and the water. What are you going to make out of this experience? Are you here to break a personal record? Do you want to do this on a college level? Have you truly found your limits? Am I doing this for my team, my people? Am I here to prove something to the world? Am I proving something to myself? The final lap comes by and I give it my all. I'm exhausted, but I give it my all, knowing it'll all be over soon. I look to my right, and I see a swimmer an arm's length ahead. I need to catch up. My competitive streak kicks in and I sprint to the finish, my arms stretched out as far as I can when I touch the finishing wall. My head bursts through the water one last time. My teammates soars over my head into the pool, continuing the relay. One for the team and one for me.
Swimming, for me, is meditative. Without it, I think I would go insane.
Helps me forget about all the hassles of my daily life for those brief seconds spent in the water during the races.
During practice or when I swim by myself, I find myself able to dissect and break down issues in my life while floating through the motions.
Water is like race. Water is omnipresent and allows one buoyancy, but also the ability to sink below. And you can fight the water with all your strength, but you will tire before it does.
You can swim streamlined and smoothly following the weak currents on the surface or the bigger currents deep underneath, going with the flow. You can fly through the water or meander slowly.
The water gives you a false sense of control over it. You think you can handle yourself and that it's harmless until you do a belly flop in the water, until you are terrifyingly pulled away from shore by a riptide.
Water can kill us. It can take a variety of forms and states. It can seem insignificant, yet living organisms need this elixir of life. Every person is born out of it and is composed of water.
Water is a part of me as I am to water. I did not beat it.
I am still treading water.
We all are. Race is like water.
We are survivors.
We are survivors.
We are survivors.
We are survivors.
Thank you very much. That's the end of the play. Even if we can't hear you, let's give our actors a round of warm applause. I'll keep the music playing.
Now we hear the music.
So I want to introduce to you our cast. Mr. Eddie Hong. Give him a round of applause. Mr. Marcus Bengzon.
Yeah.
Where's Quan? I can't find Quan.
Quan got kicked off, but he's in the participants
Well,
room.
Quan got kicked off. Finally, our author and performer, Mr. Jonathan Su.
Yeah. Thank you.
And Madison, if you can be live, I also want to introduce my producing partner, my partner in crime, Madison Hauser.
Hi.
And I am Francis Tanglao Aguas, the founding artistic director of Aguas Arts, Inc. I'm very happy and honored to have been invited by Sean Murphy and the team at 1455 to be a part of this. I want to say a special thank you to my colleague at William & Mary, Professor Stephen Shihai, who sponsored and nominated us for this festival. We have about 15 minutes of Q&A. We will have to end, actually not 15 minutes, sorry. We have to end in 5 minutes. We have a little time because we have another show. If for those of you who are William & Mary people, and even for those of you who are not, everyone's welcome at 6:30. we have The Untethered, Black Voices from Virginia. Any quick questions right now? I see familiar faces, alums, everyone.
We're just that amazing. It's fine.
They're speechless.
Jonathan, how did it feel
They're
doing it with
speechless.
3 other people?
It felt good. It's nice seeing like everyone's different interpretations. It's like really refreshing. And I thought initially, well, like when I wrote it, I didn't initially think that it would work for 4 people, but it worked seamlessly. So like, I'm really happy you guys got to, participate and try this out. And, you guys did a really good job. So thank you guys.
Yay!
Thank you.
And I also want to say a special sort of clap or round of applause. Someone just made their professional performance debut. Let's give a hand for the baby of the group, Marcus Bengzon.
Yeah, it's my first time. I'm very grateful to be here. I learned so much.
Yeah. We have a question. What was your rehearsal process like? Who wants to take that?
I guess I'll go. So we were contacted by Francis to be part of his, Jonathan, the real Jonathan, obviously this is his creation. This is his baby that he's had for years. But for the rest of us, we got brought on not too long ago. And then it was just working out the beats, the emotional moments. And then obviously the tricky process of doing Zoom theater, which is, you got to make it engaging and, as dynamic as possible. So, it was challenging, but I think it was a rewarding process by the end of it.
Yeah, this is our sort of specialty at Aguas Arts Inc. We were founded because of COVID. So I'm Filipino American, and as a Filipino, we're pretty good in making lemonade out of lemons, right? As a colonized sort of population. So that's why the next show is called The Untethered, because COVID has freed us from the limitations of space and sometimes time. Let's just share really quickly where you're all coming from. So Eddie is in.
I'm in Los Angeles.
Jonathan?
I'm in Washington, D.C.
I'm coming from basically just outside of Richmond.
I'm in Williamsburg right now.
And I'm in Williamsburg. We have a question from Akshay. Was this originally performed in 2015? I went to William and Mary then, but didn't attend this performance. Jonathan, you want to talk about that process a little bit, and that then we can wrap it up?
Yeah, it was originally
From
performed.
Beijing? Tell the story from Beijing.
Okay. All right. Well, like I kind of came up with concepts with the idea when I was studying abroad in China. I was in China for semester, spring semester, before 2015, and basically I guess it's because of my experiences there and just like I had a lot of time alone, so I got to reflect and kind of come up with some ideas. So I emailed Francis out of the blue during that summer, and I was like, "Hey, Francis, I have an idea. I want to do a show with you." And he's like, "All right, great." And then from there on, it took the rest of the senior year to kind of come up with a concept and then write it from there. And yeah, I did perform it April, I believe, 2 days at William Mary. It was in the Black Box Theater in the Theater Lab, I believe. And it was a really amazing experience, and I'm really grateful that everyone was able to attend, and you guys are able to hear it today too. Thank you.
Thank you. And for everyone's information, we are a professional arts company, so your donations will go directly to all our artists. As you know, the theaters are closed, and our actors, writers, artists, and backstage people, Madison was in a theater company, and then because of COVID, they all had to basically be retrenched. And that's why it was a perfect opportunity for me, again, to show agency and innovation. And that's why we created this virtual theater company. So all your donations will pay for our internet and even some food on the table. This is what we teach our students at William and Mary Theater, that this is not an academic exercise. This is a professional theater company. So thank you for all your support. If you are able, we do have a Venmo at Aguas Arts Inc. And we also have a GoFundMe. And our email is aguasartsinc@gmail.com. Again, I want to thank all of you for joining us. It has been wonderful being here. Please catch The Untethered. You have 10 minutes to get there, get some food, get some water. We have 16 performances waiting for you in The Untethered. And tomorrow at 4 o'clock, we have an original one-person show for 2 actors, starring Obie Award-winning actor Jojo Gonzalez from New York and Alexis Cannons from Los Angeles. It will be an incredible show tomorrow on this same festival, 4 to 5 p.m. Again, thank you very much. Thank you, Sean Murphy. Ben, thank you very much. And we thank you for supporting the arts. We'll see you at 6:30 and tomorrow at 4 to 5 here at the 1455 Summer Literary Arts Festival. This has been Aguas Arts, Inc. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much.